Just going to record this real quick to myself, and then I'll share some of my AI workflow here. So for the last month, I've been doing this vampire story based on the movie Underworld and a few other vampire story, and the lore had gotten so big, right? And it expanded to so many places. I tried to get a little bit of a thinner vibe where it's more historic, accurate realism. But then I also give it a little bit of a Game of Thrones like nation state political intrigue thing going on. So I have a whole continent here where I keep it on expanding. I went from last year at first in the middle, the modern Romania, and then I expanded to Moldavia at first. I did a little bit of Black Sea where there's some seafaring factions there, and then now I'm on Bulgaria. I did a little bit of a Transylvania because it's such a country of where the Dracula law is. Um, yeah, but they gotten so big that I can no longer remember the law. And I was just spent the last 2 3 days uh, doing just Bulgaria, and Bulgaria has been interesting. I'm just using like Nano Banana on Gemini. I still got a little bit of watermark here. When going sightseeing, like what the heck is this place? How were people like? And I just had a brief visualization. But I think it's a little bit better if you go on Google image or places like that. Just look it up rather than generate AI. Well, you do both is a little bit more insightful. I was looking at the character clothing to see how they were like. And the story is set in the 1800s, so yeah, it was very confusing. I was up at last year, right? A continent above Bulgaria, and the thing that kept coming up was that there were constant raiding parties. People were building fortification, like the tavern were like completely walled in. They were like a crossbow murder hole where they can shoot out the murder hole at bandits. And I was like, where is it coming from? And then I discovered that down south here in Bulgaria, entire villages were being burned by the Ottoman military deserters because the Ottoman in during this time they lost a bad war. They failed to pay their soldiers, so the soldiers start roaming the country. Right? The soldiers did not consider Bulgaria to be part of their nation, so they're quite invasive during this time, and the Bulgarian people have to protect themselves. They weren't soldiers too, but then they were actually very wealthy despite the bandits roaming. The bandits were numbered in the thousands, so they were a real big threat. There were like a couple of cities that were being sacked and burned, and then entire villages were basically abandoned, and people went into hiding in some of the mountain villages. And some of the cities were all the cities are being walled in and extra wall built just to defend themselves from the bandits. And this has been going on for like 30 years. And during the 1810 era, 1815 era, um, what it is that they recently lost another major battle, and then they have a surplus of deserters, so it got really bad. Yeah, around the 1820 years, at that time it started to die down. Like the bandit had realized that the cities were more fortified than before, and then the villages that were abandoned, they kind of like they were parasitic on the local population, right? So when the local population kind of went hide and then went elsewhere, it sort of drained themselves out, the bandits. And then there were two different kind of bandits. There were the Ottoman foreigner that they were actively pillaging the people for wealth. And then there were the local bandits. And then the local bandits, for whatever reason, decided that they weren't going to turn on their own people. And they decided to become revolutionary fighters instead. And so yeah, there's a whole culture there. And then so the revolution bandit fighters here are working with the people up in the Wallachia, which is the mainstay of my story. And yeah, it's been fun. I don't know if I expand a little bit too much, where I'm all over the place, but I'm keeping it interesting. I'm building new character for Bulgaria. In a story like Game of Thrones, where you have the five kingdom, right? Where you have the five kingdom. Yeah, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I'm trying to duplicate the Game of Thrones vibe here. But sometimes when we expand over much, it's hard to keep the emotional integrity of the story, you know? They did a lot of bronze, they use a lot of bronze pottery. And bronze is actually quite antiseptic, like a bacteria doesn't grow on water bacteria. Doesn't grow on bronze, so that's interesting to see. In some way, they're more advanced. Yeah. I spent like 2 days studying just on Gemini. The history of Bulgaria has been interesting. So I'm gonna talk about it a little. The city is kind of like this. I haven't decided which major city I'm gonna visit. I guess I'll pick the one with the most interesting law. I guess I'm completely new to this territory of all people. Never actually looked them up. Very unfamiliar. Here, in one of the earlier Gemini images I was doing, so the Bulgarian, some of them went away into hiding up Wallachia. Seems to be because they were rebel, and then there were a lot of bandits and then everything else. So they went up there as refugees, and then some of them went all the way up to Moldavia. Moldavia has been interesting too as a place. That the people are more serfs, where Wallachia is more of a free country. 30% of the peasants were actually landowner in this time, and in the 1800s, peasantry were still a thing. They were still at the medieval this part of the principalities. They were not as developed as London's, let's say, or the Western world, like France and other places in 1800. Yeah, there was still quite a bit of peasants caste system. But last year had the boyar system, and then the Moldavia had some kind of old money people. Just wish noble elites that own big houses, and everybody seemed to be built around the elites as serfs. The most people from Bulgaria, and then Wallachia have a little bit more people than Moldavia, but then Wallachia is the most heavily taxed place because they were major the wheat growing farmland, and the Ottoman, they eat all the wheat, and they requisition all the wheat, and then the farmer that were growing wheat cannot even afford their own wheat because they just all get taken away, and they instead eat coins. So that's been interesting. They've been under Ottoman rule for like a few hundred years or so. Up from Wallachia to Moldavia and places like that, they were just vassal state where they have to pay the tributes. Where Bulgaria is more directly, closely linked to the Ottoman, and then they were directly ruled by the Ottoman. I was studying like what kind of what's the difference And the difference is that they got some Ottoman official there. Yeah, they got quite a few Ottoman officials, and then that's what it is. Let me see. So today I was just testing out because the story got somewhat more expensive. I was testing out whether I need to write a brief summary just to for myself, where I can remember all the little things. Here I did a little bit of a mid-journey prompt for the place. And these are bandits. It's a story about werewolves and vampires also. So down at the south Wallachia, there's like the great werewolves. Midjourney did fine on this one, where I wanted the character to be a little bit thin and long armed. He's a weak character. He's not really. He's just criminal bandit. He doesn't really do much of anything. The local Wallachia, they come to realize that there's a small liking problem, and then they can deal with it because they have some kind of sulfury weapon that they know how to deal with. Maybe with the criminal or Wallachia, I'll give them a direwolf or two, but they don't have much. They're not very powerful factions. Where these are the Bulgarian werewolf faction, and the Bulgarian werewolves have an entire cave mine of their own, an iron mine, with all their mountainscape, and then they stuffed them themselves with like steel plates, extra armor class, And then they're gonna be a bit of a nuisance to my main vampire hero character. I did a prompt here just for the mine. I quite liked how the mine turned out actually. So I did so many location and character lore and things like that. Let's take a look at the Bulgarian people. These are the guild master. These are the guild master, and then yeah, you see the architecture, right, is actually quite recent time, but it's quite relatable to the modern time already, 1800s. So Midjourney is quite good at realizing history to some extent. Yeah, you get this few variation in choose and pick. I usually pick again 4 different characters, so I can nano banana expand on them if I need to. And now banana, when you try to prompt this history clothing fabric, comes across really dry and really boring by itself. You kind of need the Midjourney to spice it up. These are the peasants. You see how dirt poor they still are, and it's just a local medieval like almost. These are the Sultan Ottoman. You see, completely different culture, right? Which is interesting. I never knew too much about the Ottoman Empire. I quite like this one where the head is extra big. Yeah, they basically lost all the confidence of the empire vassal people at this point, because they were just seen by the local population as a giant insult, and then they have no power whatsoever. And most of these city official, because Bulgaria is ruled directly by the Ottoman Empire, and the local are not. Yeah, they just don't hold office. Bulgaria is such a crucial strategic location that they cannot afford to have a foreign fighting force. So they're just workers. And they're very good workers, and they earn a lot of money, and they decide to defend themselves. So after this whole debacle, then comes the revolution, freedom fighter, and then afterward, like in the 1847 or something. So there's a major purge by the Ottoman Empire of the fighting forces of a city, and there were international outcry because of it. And then later Russia came down and liberated the Orthodox Christians. So they've always been subjugating the Christians, and then the Bulgaria is a Christian nation, right? So that's a religious backdrop overall, and because they failed to police their own vassal country, then yeah, they have no respect, but from the people they have no power, and then to survive, they usually take a cut from the bandits, and then they look the other way. So it's a very bad time where the people no longer look to the Ottoman officials or the Ottoman court because they have no power as a government to back it up. And so these are the seamen, Seymen, Seymen, and they're just little town's guards, hired by the guildmaster, by the merchant elites. And this is a country where there's nothing but laborers that produce trades and goods for the Ottoman. And they became very, very wealthy. So even despite the bandits, right, these are some of the bandits, yeah, hidden in the mountainsides. They were still a thriving economy. There was still a whole group of tradecraft. I remember the Villa monastery here, where the cultural revolution started taking place because they had monks here that kept the Bulgarian history and culture alive. So they were very important to the Bulgarian people. And I think I'm gonna incorporate them into the story or something. It is supposed to be a vampire and werewolf story, but then yeah, I wanted that little sinners vibe where it's a little more history accurate. Also, these are just sheep herders. I'm not sure I'm gonna use them. And another bandit camped. With Midjourney, if you prompt in the scenery first before the characters, you get more of a scenery with a few people inside. And then people are smaller. And these are the local bandits. And you see that they're very distinct from the Ottoman, right? And I quite like the visual clothing style because I'm also chasing a sort of real life history accurate vibe of but with a bit of a Game of Thrones fun factor, where the culture of people have to look distinct. So if I have two factions, I really want them to visually have a culture to them, and the fact that the history kind of present itself to be as such, it's kind of nice. The green flag is unique. Yeah, very different people and culture. 1800, they all have muskets. But yeah, it's a very different time. And I've been enjoying the historic nature of all, and it being an entirely new material for me where I never studied up these people. It's been interesting in and of itself. And these again the Ottoman raiders, they were flamboyant, or they're just criminal, pillaging a foreign land, and yeah, they don't care at all. Or you have the Christian nations that is sort of like ground rooted to their own people. So I think it's a good pairing that these two can fight off each other, and then they'll be kind of, yeah, it'll be kind of fun visually. There's some kind of face off. They were not really were directly confrontational to one another. They're both bandits, but the local guildmaster would sometimes pay off the local rebel fighters to give them early lookout signals, so they know that when the foreign bandits are coming in. So the people were legitimately helping one another out, despite the anarchy. And it's nice to see that eventually there was a happy ending to them, because today we know that Bulgaria is a independent nation, and it wasn't always the case. And there was still a time where they were subjugated people, but it was the beginning of a time where they liberated themselves. So yeah, it's been interesting. I've been looking at these Bulgarian people and deciding which group I will develop character and story for. I might prompt in some merchant characters. Typically, what I like to do is I like to going thin, right? Going the first pass where I'm not really worrying too much about a specific character. I just worry about a group of them to get the lay of the land. I'm probably not gonna do some. I'm probably not gonna do peasants in Bulgaria. I'm probably gonna go after the middle class, because the peasants, I don't know. It's not very interesting to me at the moment. The rebel, maybe I'll add a rebel character, but just because I like the clothing here so much. I think that the peasants is gonna be a passerby. Like Game of Thrones, it wouldn't have been very fun if the Game of Thrones story, and all you have is these powerless peasants that, beginning of story and the end of story, they don't really change their lives. Yeah, I think there's gonna be a major character from all the merchant guilds. The merchant guild has been interesting because the other principality, they don't have a merchant master. And then there's such a backbone of the economy. And then we also have some priests here. I don't know, it's been very new. Nothing really spoke to me just yet. Uh, yeah, I've been a little bit mulling over what I'm gonna do with it. I'm also a little bit of emotionally strained by the maybe over expansion of the story a little bit. It's been rather fast, but I do like the visual. I'm just starting to comprehend what's happening. And then these entirely fictional werewolf lore, it's okay. I like the leather strapped plates, and I don't know which group is gonna be infected with liking or not. I have a story in mind where they were infected this part of town by the lichen problem. So I'm gonna go into a Canva here, and today I started using Canva because the story got so deep, like pages, images after images, and what if I forget, right? Forget all the little story. Like here is a father for Bulgarian rebel fighter who went up to Wallachia. Uh, this guy. And then these are basically his daughters, and they're all barmaids. Uh, and then the daughters, they work for a place called the Han in Wallachia. And Midjourney did a little bit error here where, but okay, this one is fine. There's only one door in a Han.